Here is today's Philadelphia 76ers Now rundown, and we have a loaded show on tap. According to reports, the New Orleans Pelicans contacted the 76ers to gauge their interest in Brandon Ingram. Could a deal come to fruition on that front? Also, the Sixers and Bulls discussing a Zack LaVine trade. And is Philadelphia interested in Miles Bridges? Has it been debunked? All of that coming your way. But first, a programming reminder here. We're going to be live for round one of the 2024 NBA Draft next Wednesday, so less than a week away. Philadelphia right now with pick number 16 in the first round. June 26th. The show gets underway with an hour pregame show, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. Join us, hit that sub button, and hit that bell icon. Turn on those notifications. Therefore, when we do go live, you'll be notified. Hope everybody out there is having a great Thursday and you're getting set to have an awesome weekend. Let's start off on the Brandon Ingram front. Some interesting stuff here. Do the New Orleans Pelicans prefer to send him to Philadelphia? Here's what The Athletic had to say about BI. In recent days, rumors have swirled about the Pelicans dangling Brandon Ingram in trade talks. And in one iteration, a hypothetical Ingram-for-Alperen Şengün swap was mentioned. But the Rockets have no interest, team sources said. League sources did say that New Orleans also contacted the Philadelphia 76ers concerning a possible Ingram trade. Now, for the real ones who watch this show often, this isn't the first time that we've talked about Brandon Ingram because the Sixers' reported interest in him has been long documented, or at least there's been chatter. There's been buzz behind the Sixers' potential pursuit of Brandon Ingram that I kind of look at as a plan B, plan C, and a fallback plan. If the Pelicans were asking for Alperen Şengün, what does that mean for Philadelphia? It means that the asking price too high right now because Şengün is a player, former first-round pick. I think he's really developed over the last couple of years. I liked him as a Euro prospect going into the draft a couple of years ago. But if the Pelicans want him and they're moving on from Jonas Valanciunas and they're willing to take him for Brandon Ingram, what do the Sixers have to offer that comes in the neighborhood of even matching that? They really don't, other than draft picks. But is New Orleans in a spot right now where they're trying to tinker with their roster, not rebuild it? As for what Ingram's done over the last 4 years, many of you know he could score the basketball. He's been an improving assist man. His efficiency has been good at moments throughout his career, but the lack of confidence in the three-point shot in 2 of the last 3 years is a little bit concerning. As you can see there, 2021-22, 32.7% from three-point range, and then this past year, 35.5% from long range, and the confidence waned, I imagine, also because he got benched by head coach Willie Green, a former Sixers legend. So how do you go about a Brandon Ingram trade? The question that you have to pose, how much do you give up for Ingram? What is the Pelicans' asking price? And for me, as I alluded to a little while ago, you go after the big fish, right? A Jimmy Butler trade, a Kevin Durant trade, signing LeBron, going after Paul George. Those types of moves. Mikal Bridges would be my absolute dream trade target, right? But outside of that grouping, what's the fallback plan? All good businesses have to have a fallback plan. They have to have a plan B, and if the initial plan does not work, how do you revert? How do you adjust? For the Sixers, is it going to be Brandon Ingram? He does have 1 year left on his deal. The issue, Chip, you might have to give him a contract extension to make this whole thing worth it if you're parting ways with draft capital.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts to this situation, and that's a big aspect of it. He's going to be asking for and demanding $50 million a year on a 4-year, $200 million contract extension if you do trade for him. Otherwise, you're just going to let him walk, which you wouldn't trade for him and let him walk. So you assume if they trade for him, they're going to extend him. But I know that there's interest from the Sixers, clearly, and the Pelicans reaching out to the Sixers for a deal. But I'm not sure how likely a deal is to get done because the Pelicans, I feel, are in a situation where they want to retool that roster and really build it around Zion. And they still have CJ McCollum over there, right? Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. Like, I don't think they're a team that's going to be too interested in the draft capital that the Sixers have to offer. And again, that is all they have to offer. A couple first-round picks. Maybe they want a Paul Reed thrown in the deal, but I just don't know why that would interest the Pelicans. I mean, you see they're asking the Rockets for Alperen Şengün. They're clearly looking for good players to surround their core. So I don't really know why they would be super interested in a deal with Philly for the 16th pick this year and a 2026, 2028 first. Which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That's why I'm not too sure, even though the buzz is there, the rumors are there, that a deal does ultimately come to fruition.
So there you go on the Brandon Ingram front. And I mentioned at the rip, today's show is straight up stacked. We are only getting started. First, though, let's pop up today's poll question. Will a Brandon Ingram trade go down with Philadelphia? Y for yes, N for no. Type your answers, type your predictions down in the comment section right now. Story number 2, coming up here in just a moment. Have the Sixers and Bulls discussed a Zach LaVine trade? A lot of content creators in the Chicago area have been talking about this over the last couple of weeks from things that I've seen on YouTube and seeing some information out there, but this is also starting to gather buzz nationally. What is that buzz? Stay tuned to find out. These Sixers draft hats still on sale, by the way, with the draft less than a week away. Head to chatsports.com/76ers draft hats to get yours today. Love the color scheme, love the look. You can get the flat brim. There's also a dad hat style available as well. As for the aforementioned Zach LaVine, according to reports, Sixers, Bulls, they have had conversations about a Zach LaVine transaction. And people are going to feel every type of way about this. Casey Johnson of NBC Sports Chicago with this. It's why Zach LaVine's future isn't in the only trade scenario that has been discussed, even if sources said that Bulls executive Arturas Karnisovas has floated as many as 15 proposals centered on the two-time All-Star guard to various teams, including the Sacramento Kings, the Orlando Magic, and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Kings, I think, would make some sense. We know that the Magic feel as though they are close to really becoming a second round or deeper team in the Eastern Conference, and they have some really good pieces on that roster. They also need scoring. They need a shooter. Does Zach LaVine make sense, though, for the latter 76ers? Does he fit alongside Tobias, does he take the role of Tobias Harris is what I meant to say, and does he fit in alongside Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid? Or is he too much of a hot and cold, Jekyll and Hyde, up and down, spotty shooter who clashes with the fit of Maxey and Embiid because he's ball-centric, requires the basketball to have to hop into a rhythm to get into his fullest bag offensively? And this is also a player who does have a little bit of a concerning history as far as injuries go, with a couple of knee ailments over the years. This past year, only played 25 games. 19.5 points per game. Culturally, the Bulls were a mess, and I think a lot of that is because of ownership there. I'm not sure that's as much of Zach LaVine's fault as it is ownership's fault, but he kind of seemed like he was done with it. My issue with Zach LaVine hasn't played in a lot of playoff games, and you're now trying to dethrone the Boston Celtics. They are so playoff seasoned and NBA Finals seasoned. They have a bunch of winners. Would the Sixers just compile a team with a bunch of losers? Zach LaVine and Joel Embiid kind of leading the charge there. I'm not too worried about Tyrese Maxey on that front, but I do worry culturally about Philadelphia and psychologically about Philadelphia and trying to get past the Boston Celtics. And you look at the production, and then you look at the contract numbers for Zach LaVine. He's very, very expensive. The plus, you trade for him, his value is diminished. You might not have to give up as much as what you had to have given up maybe at this point last year. And another plus, he's under contract for 3 years. So you have some flexibility as far as the trade goes. As far as the player and the fit, I think Chip and I take similar stances here. Keep LaVine far away from Philadelphia.
Yeah, look, I do think some of the Zach LaVine discourse and some of the hate has gone a little bit too far. He's still a good player, right? Like, it just, when you look at the contract, $40+ million over the next 3 years for a player that can score the ball. He's a talented scorer. I don't want to take that away from him. And, the efficiency's been up and down. A few years ago, he was almost 50, 40, 90 on 27 points a game. He's clearly a talented scorer, right? He's a bucket getter. That's what he does. But how can he play in the structure of an offense? And I don't really think he fits the Sixers' biggest needs. They don't need another true bucket getter who's not going to play defense. Now, if you want to get a bucket getter who can also play some defense and be a good ball mover, good connecting piece, that's fine. But Zack LaVine, he can shoot off the catch. Not that he can't do that, but he's always been a ball-dominant scorer. He's going to be sharing a backcourt now with Tyrese Maxey, who, the two of them defensively, I don't love how that works. And look, LaVine, the injury history, the lack of winning everywhere he's been, from Minnesota to Chicago. I was talking to our Bulls Report host earlier today, actually. He asked me, what would you give up in a Zack LaVine trade? And I was like, I'm going to be honest, I would need draft picks from the Bulls just to take Zack LaVine because of that big contract. So I'm not a fan of this move. I think there's plenty of other directions you can go and plenty of different places you can spend this money than Zack LaVine.
Yeah, it's almost like Philadelphia has all this money, and if nothing works out, they're like, well, we have to spend this money, right? No, you don't have to spend the money. If it doesn't mean that you're improving your basketball team, you don't have to spend that money. I'd rather run it back with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and a couple of other really good bench pieces and complementary pieces compared to having more of a top-heavy roster with Zack LaVine on it. And then we round out today's show with this. Conflicting reports on the 76ers' interest in signing and just being overall interested in free agent forward Miles Bridges. There was this from Matt Moore. The Sixers have been linked to Paul George for months, with speculation only increasing after George appeared on ESPN's pregame show with Joel Embiid. So George and Jimmy are the two high-profile names, and the Sixers are also expected to have interest in Charlotte Hornets forward Miles Bridges. As we know, this time of the year, late in June, it's rumor season. Paul Hudrick, Liberty Ballers, dispelling that, saying it's not true. There's been some recent report linking the Sixers to Miles Bridges. A source familiar with the team's thinking says they are not expected to pursue Bridges. And I've seen some people in the comment section saying, Chase, Chip, Miles Bridges, Miles Bridges. For me, I don't think he makes sense. I think he's a good stats, bad team player. He's never really proven to me that he could be a good third option alongside Maxey and Embiid. And the history is a little bit concerning, right? Pled no contest to felony domestic violence charges, serving 3 years on probation. He missed all of 2022-2023 because of a suspension, and then the first 10 games in 2023-2024. Now, those 3 charges were dropped: violating protection order, misdemeanor child abuse, and injury to personal property. But if you just want to talk about this from a basketball standpoint and not a legal standpoint, I think that these stats are empty stats. And I just don't think that Miles Bridges is going to come to Philadelphia and be a winning player for a team that's trying to get it over the hump. 21 points per game, 7 rebounds, cool. 46% from the floor, not that efficient. Sub 35% from 3, not reliable enough, not consistent enough. Chip, are you with me? Are you against me? Where you at?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of adding Miles Bridges to this roster. Apart from the legal stuff, which,
is what it is.
It is what it is. It's happened. Him as a player on the court, just never really been efficient. Not the floor spacer you would like to see around Embiid and Maxey. Has the tools to be a good defender, an athletic player, and, he's a high riser. He'll throw down a good dunk, but I just don't really see him fitting. I don't see him as that third star. We talk about these third guys that can play next to Embiid and Maxey and carry them in the playoffs and be reliable when the game comes down to it in the closing moments. Miles Bridges isn't that guy. He doesn't have playoff experience. He's never proven to be a winner or a playoff riser. It's just not the type of move I see the Sixers making. And again, that interest was debunked. So again, plenty of other options for wings that they can go to, guys that fit a little bit better. He hasn't really ever been a great catch and shoot guy either, which is going to be very important for the Sixers. Someone who can be in that corner, hit that corner 3.
Yep.
I do like his ability to attack the rim, and he certainly improved as a jump shooter over the years, but just not a great fit on the court with the Sixers, in my opinion. Plenty of other wings you can get. I honestly might rather have Zack LaVine than Miles Bridges, but I'm staying away from both of them.
Yeah. And that's where I'm at. Like, I'm all for being aggressive, and I've said here on the show, Mikal Bridges would be my dream target. I'd try to make a run at Jimmy Butler or Paul George. I'm trying to win over the next couple of years, knowing that I'm going to have Tyrese Maxey at the very least here for the long haul. You got to take swings. You got to be aggressive. I'm a firm believer, too, that aggressive businesses win when it comes to upper echelon companies and then in professional sports. But in this instance here, you got to be smart. And I think that LaVine or Bridges would be dumb moves, and you just revert to the thought process of, well, we missed out on all of our targets. Now we have this money left over. I guess we'll spend it now. You could save that money later, and that's the smarter financial move. Trade deadline, keep that in mind if you can't improve your team this summer, which obviously would be a huge disappointment. We round out with this. Name a free agent you want the 76ers to sign. Share that with me down in the comment section. Thanks for watching today's show. Don't forget to hit that sub button, and we'll be back tomorrow with more coverage of the Sixers.